PR Connections Radio presents.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Professionals Podcast. I am your host, Rachel West, and I have a belief that when we take the time to really get to know others, we find that we have a lot more in common than we do different. So that is exactly my approach here on the Professionals Podcast, is to bring on special guests to get to know them on a personal level and their journey and successes leading to the professional that they are today. I have a very special guest, Stephanie Jordan. She is an acupuncturist and functional medicine practitioner based here in Las Vegas, Nevada. She teaches people how to make lifestyle changes to heal their whole body rather than using drugs to treat their symptoms. Dr. Stephanie has been using alternative medicine for almost 30 years. Welcome to the show, Stephanie.
Thank you very much, Rachel. It's nice to be here.
Yes, I'm so excited to chat with you today. So let's dive right in and get started. And I just want you to share a quick 5-minute or so background in how you got to where you are today.
Well, I was one of those kids who didn't have any idea what they wanted to do in life. And I chose psychology in college because there was nothing else interesting. So I went through all my psychology studies. I got my doctorate in psychology. I had a 20-year clinical practice in psychology. But right before I defended my dissertation, I went to a workshop and someone talked about acupuncture. And I had this huge epiphany. And it was like, oh my God, this is what I'm meant to be doing. But I had just spent all this time and energy going to graduate school. And so I didn't feel like I could go to acupuncture school at that time. So I started my clinical practice at that point, and it took me 13 years to get to acupuncture school. But I finally did that and started an acupuncture practice in Florida before I moved to Las Vegas. And then fast forward a few years, this pandemic hit. And it was quite a shock since I couldn't work. I couldn't see people, I couldn't put hands on people. And so that was really difficult. But I had a huge gift because I got introduced to a mentor of functional medicine and by the name of Dan Kalish. And I did his mentorship for a year and continue further studies all the time in that. And today I use both acupuncture and functional medicine in my practice to help people.
And can you explain for someone who might not be familiar with the acupuncture modality and what it's used and how it's used and how it's different from other modalities out there? Because it's not very common and there's not a lot of people doing it, especially here in Las Vegas.
So acupuncture's been around over 5,000 years. And it is based on the understanding that qi, our life force, which we call qi, flows throughout our body from head to toe. And when that qi gets obstructed is when people go out of balance and they get different kinds of symptoms. And so with the use of needles, we are moving qi in the body. It's kind of like a dam in a river. You have the dam, and above the dam, all this energy sits there and collects there. And so nothing gets through that obstruction. And on the other side of the dam, nothing is happening there. The nutrition isn't getting through, the blood isn't getting through well. And so you have a deficiency. So often you have what we call a stagnation and a deficiency happening at the same time. And so the needles are used to open up places that are stuck. So acupuncture understands that the body has an inherent ability to heal itself. And so we're kind of opening up the door. We're pointing the way. This is a problem. This is where we might be able to put a needle to open up energy. And once the chi starts to flow again, the body naturally heals itself. It's really quite elegant and simple at the same time.
Yeah, it is. I love that. So, can you share how in your practice you work with the whole body and working with the mind, body, and spirit to create healing?
You're asking me how that happens? I'm not sure what your question
Yeah,
is.
how in your practice is different from others by working with the whole body,
Okay.
the mind, body, and spirit.
Right. So there's the physical body, and that's the most obvious when you think about acupuncture because we're putting needles in and moving chi. But there is so much more to living. You know, we have to eat properly, we have to exercise properly, we have to not work too hard or play too hard. Both of those things can be a problem. And so there's always a certain amount of coaching that goes on and discussion with the patient about their lifestyle and nutrition and what they might be able to adjust in order to feel better.
And do you coach in those areas too in your practice, or do you partner with others?
I coach in that area as well.
Very
And
cool.
it is. It's a lot of fun for me and interesting, and it provides information that people don't ordinarily know. You know, so when we have a problem and we Google cough, you know, someone can Google and look up for 6, 8, 10 supplements for cough, but your cough is different than somebody else's cough. And so we pick supplements because we read what it does and we go, oh, that sounds great. And they do sound great, but it may not be great for you. So both acupuncture and functional medicine are very individualized. And that's one of the things that makes it interesting for me as a practitioner.
Yeah, it really does. There's no one size fits all anything.
Not at all, anywhere.
Yeah. So how we think and feel, how does that affect our body?
So let's just go cut to the chase here. Stress is the underbelly of so many of our illnesses. So how we think often determines how we feel. How we feel can also determine how we think. And so trying to understand what we're really thinking and feeling is part of the teaching, because most of us don't stop and think. You know, we're this bundle of energy and we're busy in life and we're raising families and we're running businesses. And, you know, it's not, you can't do it by yourself. I think today, in today's world, most of us need coaches for something in life.
Yes. What do you know now that you would tell Stephanie 30 years ago in getting into this field?
What would I tell her? I think as an alternative practitioner, we are not as focused on how to run a business. You know, it doesn't feel like a business to me. Mm-hmm. And so I would tell myself years ago that I need to pay attention and at least hire someone who can do that part of the practice for me. It's very hard to do everything by yourself.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, you're right. We get into a business, and same thing for me. I went to school for graphic design. I moved out here to Las Vegas from Chicago thinking that I could get a job at a casino or some big corporation in their marketing department and do all the fun stuff. Well, that didn't happen because they wanted experience. And I only had an 8-month internship working with a nonprofit. And I just got a job working at a coffee shop. And everything really does happen for a reason. And it may take many years for you to see it, but you will see it at some point. So I get this job at a coffee shop, and this coworker of mine is also a graphic designer. And she jokingly says we should start our own business. Well, I took her serious because I thought, well, if nobody else is going to hire me because they want experience, I will start my own business and hire myself and gain the experience. So we did that, jumped in, not having any idea of what it means to have a graphic design and marketing company, and that we have to do all the things ourselves. We're the salesperson, we are the marketing department. We don't get to just sit on our computers and have fun and do make things look pretty. So yes, they don't teach us that as entrepreneurs.
No.
Jump in and have to learn. And now as a coach, that is something I coach my clients on. I work with a health coach, and she purchased this program that was like $3,000, some marketing program, and she has not even opened it because that is not what she wants to do. She does not want to become a marketing professional and learn how to do all the stuff herself. She wants to help people get healthy. She's a menopause coach. So she wants to help women who are transitioning in their life understand the body. That is her passion, not learning how to become a marketing professional. So many people get caught up in that they think that as the business owner, those things are important, but not as important as you doing what you do best. Because
I'm sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
I was just going to say today, I think it's different. People going to acupuncture school today are getting business courses. But when I was coming through, we did not have that. So I didn't have that support.
Yeah, and you can take in college, there is now an entrepreneur degree that you can get.
Isn't that wonderful?
When I was in college either. So yes, things are happening and changing and evolving. So that is excellent. What is something that you have had to overcome in your field or being a professional in the wellness field? What is something that you had to go through and overcome it that might help somebody who's going through that now?
Well, I think it's always difficult to market yourself. And it's often hard. We see our good points and we also see our bad points or the parts that need assistance, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that getting a coach, getting help with somebody helping you to define who you really are, what your skills are, and how to promote those skills to people. And then, getting out in the community and communicating that. So I think that has been one of my most difficult activities. For a long time, there weren't a lot of acupuncturists here, but now there are more. And so it's important to get out and to teach because, as you mentioned at the beginning of our podcast, people are not really familiar with acupuncture. And they're often afraid of the needles and don't understand that 95% of the time, you don't feel it. And when you do feel it, it happens so quickly and it's over. So there are many things to help teach people so that they feel more comfortable with it. It's such a wonderful medicine and helps people a lot. It's so good for pain in particular. And that's actually been recognized by the federal government now because Medicare is paying for pain as a diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that's been very positive for acupuncturists. But people don't necessarily know that it's really good for COVID, for example, for upper respiratory issues. It's really good for gynecological problems, for gastrointestinal problems, for insomnia. I mean, there's many things that acupuncture can help with, not just pain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that because so many people don't know what other modalities are out there. And that is exactly why I do this podcast, because I want to bring alternative resources and educate people on what else is out there and how they can stay healthy, and that there's not just one way of doing it. There are many options. And like I said, there's nothing that's a one size fits all. So something may work for somebody else, but not for you. And so
Right.
so letting people know what is available out there and how it could help support them on their journey.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So how what do you think being a professional means?
So I think being a professional means to hold yourself to high standards,
Mm-hmm.
to do the very best you can, to stay in your integrity, to be focused. For me, it's being focused on doing service for people. Even though I get paid for what I do, it's doing a service for individuals, for mankind. It's, to help people feel better. It's a joy to get that feedback.
It is. It is a joy to get feedback. Absolutely. What do you do for yourself as a healthcare or a wellness practitioner to keep yourself grounded? What are some of the things that you do?
Well, I'm in a women's group that meets several times a month. I work out, I swim. I've finally added, weight training because always concerned about bones. Resetting your nervous system is a really big deal because stress is such an issue in our world, in our society. And so doing things like vagus nerve um, exercises, um, and other ways of resetting, breathing techniques help reset the nervous system. And it's so easy to get off kilter. Something comes from the side, that you weren't expecting, and you get blindsided by something that you have to deal with right now in this moment. Someone calls me up and says, I got shingles, I don't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a certain amount of stress that, my first thought is, okay, what can I tell them to do right now? What can I, set them up to come in and have some acupuncture that can help with the healing process of the shingles. And so, it doesn't have to be you get in a car accident kind of stress. It's the daily living stress.
Yes.
That is so big, especially here in Vegas.
Yeah.
We're a very fast-moving town,
Mm-hmm.
and everything that means we have to deal with.
Yeah, I agree. Everybody wants instant results because life is just
Yes,
so
right.
fast. And just taking a moment and pausing and just being is so valuable to us as humans. And so often people forget to do that. Just pause and breathe.
Right. Pause and breathe. And these kinds of lifestyle issues, with the addition of, eating appropriately and exercising and getting enough sleep, these are all the kind of lifestyle changes that are so important on the functional medicine side of my practice. because we're trying to get people, instead of dealing with their symptoms with drugs, to change behaviors with these lifestyle factors. And they often can heal themselves. Sometimes just stopping gluten can have a huge impact on somebody's digestion and how they're feeling all day long. So, there are a lot of factors that don't have anything to do with any doctors, but people have to know what to do. They need the suggestions. They need to know what kinds of supplements might be helpful to them. As I was mentioning before, when we Google, we get 10 possibilities. I've been doing this so long now that I can now help narrow it down for people so that they're getting a more appropriate supplement and not wasting their money.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. I love that. Yes, there's so much, and people just turn. What is one small tip that you can give people who are in pain or who have a specific symptom and they don't know what to do and they're just going to Google and searching, like you said, their symptom? What small tip could you give them to help them?
Well, I think we don't give ourselves enough credit that we know a lot. We have a lot of information about ourselves. And that if we just sat down with paper and pencil and we looked at what our symptoms were, and then we looked at what our lifestyle was, I have a feeling that people would start to know, oh, when I eat this, I don't feel so good afterwards. I feel lethargic, and I'm sleepy, or, people are wired and tired. Well, why does that happen? And often, you need some assistance in figuring these things out. But I think if people were to just stop for a moment and think about, make themselves be a priority, and give themselves a half hour to look at diet, exercise, what they're doing to reset their nervous systems, what is causing the problem they already know about, I think people would come up with some ideas to start.
Yeah, thank you. If people want to get in touch with you and ask questions or come in and see you, what is the best way for them to contact you?
Well, they can go to my website, which is wbhlv.com, and that stands for Whole Body Health Las Vegas. And they can text or call me at 702-382-8484. And if someone leaves me a message, I'll be sure to get back to them. Sometimes I'm working with people, so I can't always answer the phone. So I always encourage people to please leave a message.
Yes, which is rare. People don't do. I just called somebody earlier today and their message box was full. So that I wasn't able to leave a message.
Right?
Yes. What last minute advice or tip or anything inspirational thought do you want to leave our viewers and listeners with?
Well, I think there's always hope. I think there's always a way. We just have to find out what it is. And sometimes that is Googling. We get some information. Sometimes a friend has an idea, and sometimes you need a professional. So I think to stay hopeful, for sure, no matter what it is that you're doing or whatever it is that you're going through, and get some help if you can't resolve it yourself.
Yes, I love that. Stay hopeful and seek help. That is the solution.
That is the solution, yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Stephanie, for being here. I have enjoyed talking with you and I have learned so much. Thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you.
Yes. We will be back here for another episode of the Professionals Podcast on October 4th. We are here on the first Wednesday of every month. We will see you then.